today is quite exciting. We're on partial lockdown in Eswatini and the game parks have opened again so that we can just go visit and have a lovely time in a beautiful setting. So we're going to visit Eswatini Game Reserve today, and we've got a lovely project for you today.
So it's this really useful technique that allows you to copy an image onto another surface in the right proportion. So basically what you do is you draw a grid over a image that you've printed out, and then looking at the different parts of the grid, you copy those lines onto your separate page. So we have quite a few pictures that my cousin actually took. He does wildlife photography. So there's one of a rhino and of wild dogs, an elephant and a warthog. You can basically pick any picture, it doesn't have to be of animals.
So what it actually does when you overlay a photograph like that with a grid, then you are tricking your brain and you alleviate the fear of, oh, I have to draw an elephant or I have to draw a warthog. Because you're only relating lines to other lines, you're just drawing lines, and you no longer think of the image that you're drawing. And by the way, we're going to turn it upside down when we draw. You'll see how that works. We've just arrived at the game parks.
Here we are. So we decided that the image we're going to do is going to be of an animal because we're going to be in the wildlife park anyway. And right now you can actually see some animals. For the drawing with a grid, you'll need a piece of paper to do your artwork on, a sharpener, a ruler, a pencil, an eraser, and your picture of choice that you've printed out.
The blocks of your grid can either be 1, 2, 3 centimeters wide, depending on how much detail you want in every little square. I'm going to choose 2 centimeters. You'll do your grid on all 4 sides, always starting at the same side. So if I'm starting at the top left-hand corner, then I will start at the bottom left-hand corner when drawing my grid. You need to be accurate when drawing that. Once you've done your marks, you can then just put your ruler at every mark and draw your lines down in order to create your grid.
The lines on your image can be very strong, but once you move on to your actual drawing, you're going to have to draw the lines very softly, which is called a ghost grid, so that you can easily erase it after you've done your drawing. So now you can just label your image. It will be ABC on the bottom line and 1, 2, 3 up one of the side lines.
So as you can see, this is a square image, but I want to transfer this onto a rectangular piece of paper. So I'm going to have to decide how I'm going to do that. So I'm going to put mine into the middle of this page so that it can just fade out towards the outside. So my most important area to get in will be this side now. Okay, now you need to listen carefully because it becomes quite mathematical.
So I've measured and I now know that the length of my image is 20 centimeters and the length of my paper is 42 centimeters. And I also know that one block on my image has a side length of 2 centimeters. So now I'm going to apply this formula to find out x. So now I'm going to put my numbers into this formula. So the length of my paper is 42 centimeters but I'm just going to round it down to 40 centimeters to make the whole thing easier. And the size of the side of one block is 2 centimeters, and I'll divide that all by 20 centimeters. And that gives me 4 centimeters. So I now know that the side of one block of the grid on my piece of paper is going to be 4 centimeters.
So now we're ready to transfer the grid onto our piece of paper. I took the shorter, narrower side of this paper, so I made the grid fit into the shorter side, and I'm going to, for every 2 centimeter here, I'm going to draw 3 centimeters down this way. Remember, you have to, if you've got 3 centimeters here, it has to be 3 centimeters across. Your grid has to remain square. So when you're drawing the grid, it has to be very, very light. I call it a ghost grid. It has to be so light that it's easy to erase it later. People get this wrong every time, so make sure you're not the one to get this wrong. If you've started your 3 centimeter grid from the top left-hand corner, you have to start your 3 centimeter grid from the bottom left-hand corner, so that you're starting from the same side, moving downwards. Similarly, if you've started on the top left-hand corner, you need to do your grid lines from the top right-hand side, so that you move down this way. I draw in my soft ghost grid lines now, every 3 centimeters.
Then, just like you did for your image, you're going to label your grid again on your piece of paper. Now that you've done your grid on your piece of paper, you are going to turn everything upside down, just so that you really are just looking at the lines and not trying to copy the image, rather just the individual lines. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at each block individually. Like, let's say I'm looking at E5, let's say, and I'm going to copy exactly the lines that I see in E5 here onto E5 here.
Okay, we really weren't joking when we said turn it around. It does help your brain to draw this more accurately if you draw everything upside down. Give it a try. Okay, so now I'm going to start drawing the wild dog here at the nose. So I'm going to go to I3. So I, 1, 2, 3 up. 1, 2, 3. So the nose starts around about the middle of the grid here, and then the line curves over this next grid and crosses just below halfway line here. Then this line moves up more and crosses a little bit more than halfway here, and then it turns the corner. So I'm copying the lines in relation to the grid, and I'm copying the shape of the line, whether it's a curved line or a straight line. And then I cross the grid at exactly the same point as it would have been on the smaller image. Here we go. So now that you've drawn your picture upside down, you can turn it around and see what you've got. And voila, your perfect rendition of your wild dog.
Now that you've finished your drawing and your rough lines, you can move on to either shading if you're just using pencil, or you can move on to paint. But before you do that, you want to just erase these grid lines. video, make sure that you give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below. And thank you so much for watching.
I hope you're enjoying your time here with us in Milwan Wildlife Sanctuary, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.